probably 1988 or 89, I matched Catherine with her little sister. And I saw her at the convention, the Rochester convention at the exhibit hall. And she said, "Hello, Brian Fox. I just want to tell you, I remember you, and our match is still going on." So that's one of my really fond joys of working. Dr. Catherine Clark is a great friend and supporter of HLAA. She has a long tenure of 38 years as professor, audiologist, and coordinator of the cochlear implant program, RIT NTID. So just that is just wonderful right there. She earned a bachelor's degree from Bradley University, a master's in audiology from the University of Louisville, a doctorate from Salus University, and she did a fellowship at the House Institute at Los Angeles. And if you know anything about hearing health, that House Institute is very, very important. She has a real agape love for people. Not only when we did the match, but as you hear what she's done, she'll be sharing information today regarding her work as a volunteer with Global Vision's Empowerment in Ethiopia, where 5 million people are deaf or hard of hearing. She was honored in 2015 and 2016, and in 2023, Global Visions established the Dr. Catherine Clark Center for Audiology at Hawassa, Ethiopia. And HLAA recognized her work. She was a PAC member, but they also gave her a gift to Global Visions Empowerment. We welcome Catherine today as a valued staff member at NTID and for her ministry. She's definitely a ministry of mission for Global Visions Empowerment. So let's welcome her. Let's give her a big round of applause. I think you probably have to have the
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for such a warm welcome. In a sense, I feel I'm back home. So I appreciate that. A lot of familiar faces. Thanks again, Brian, for that lovely introduction and matching me to my little sister. We were matched when she was 12. She's now 36. So that's how long we've been in contact, and Brian helped us get started. I wanted the match because I wanted to see somebody young who was hard of hearing get into college. And that's always been my goal, is to work with individuals who have hearing loss to give them better access to audiology services as well as educational services. Now, what I'd like to do is a little bit closer. Thank you for letting me know that. Go ahead and share my experiences working in Ethiopia. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Is this, I'm trying not to block. Is this a better position? Okay, great. Thank you. Now, I've been to Ethiopia 7 times. Okay. And you can imagine the mileage I've racked up over traveling. It is at least 21 hours of flight time just to get there. So it's been quite a journey, but it's been well worth it. One of my goals there is to set up an infrastructure for the provision of audiology services. And in the picture here, you can look, you see me standing, I'm leaning over a man with a computer, and that is a doctor, and I'm teaching him how to program hearing aids. And on the right, you see a map of Ethiopia, and it's in the eastern part of Africa. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about me, just to follow up on Brian's introduction. As he mentioned, I'm an RIT professor. I've been there 38 years. I'm going to confess, it's my first job. So I was hired. I've never left because I love it so much. People ask me when I'm going to retire, and I say, I don't know. It's hard to give up something you really enjoy. I've also done some adjunct teaching with speech language pathology students at both Nazareth College and at Geneseo College. At NTID, I'm primarily an audiologist, providing hearing tests, hearing aid fitting, and in the picture up at the right, that's me working with a student who is getting their cochlear implant reprogrammed. And that's one of my areas of expertise. I first met or got involved with HLAA when it was known as SHHH in 1988, when the convention was here in Rochester. I helped out with teen activities. So I fell in love with the organization at that time. So over the years, somewhat as Brian mentioned, I've been a professional advisory committee member. I've had HLA members come to my classes to serve as guest speakers. When working with clients in clinic, I recommend that they join HLAA. In fact, just last week, I had a colleague email me about a church which has individuals who have hearing loss, but he didn't know of any resources. And I immediately said, I've got an organization for you. And so I referred him to the HLAA website. And because of your great telecoil program, I'm going to follow up with that information. So maybe their church can get looped if it's not already. So I really want to thank HLAA for being an ongoing resource to audiologists and the clients we work with. So thank you. I got involved with Visions Global Empowerment, which is a nonprofit organization, back in 2014. Visions had partnered with the local Nazareth College. So my first trip was with some undergraduate speech language pathologists. In the picture on the right is with me meeting children in Ethiopia for the first time. These statistics kind of represent why I was interested in working in Ethiopia. From the Healthy Hearing Survey for 2024, they estimate about 48 million deaf and hard of hearing people in the United States. And the World Health Organization estimates about 5.5 million in Ethiopia. So you can see the contrast, almost 8 times as much here in the United States. But what's nice about here, we have the ENTs. So we've got medical support for individuals who have hearing loss, at least 18,000, as well as at least 13,000 audiologists. When you compare that to Ethiopia, 5.5 million people and 60 ENTs, just to get a magnitude of how underserved that population is. In audiologists, no certified audiologists in the country. Which is interesting when I think about audiology, which dates back to World War II, in the 1940s. It's been a huge field here in the United States, but it's in its infancy in Ethiopia. And that's something that I'm trying to have an impact on. Oh, in the picture here, this is an example of an ENT using the tools that most ENTs have, doing a tuning fork test. Okay, they typically don't have the machines, the audiometers. And also, they're testing children starting at age 7. So imagine a child with severe hearing loss not getting their first hearing test until they're 7 years old. So the language delays are significant. And part of that reason is because they don't have the tools to do it. Okay. So here's some background information on the nonprofit that I volunteer for, Visions. Visions has been involved with nonprofit work for the past 21 years. They've been in Ethiopia since 2012. They work on literacy and leadership development in Sri Lanka and India. And Ethiopia is the only country they work with individuals who have hearing loss. So their ultimate goals are to reduce poverty, promote healthier lifestyle, have better access to education, reduce discrimination based on gender and hearing status. Ultimately, the goal is to empower deaf and hard of hearing people so they find employment, which changes the economic landscape for the country. Because right now, hearing loss has become a public health issue. So this is where I went last year, to Hawassa. It's the southern part of Ethiopia. The capital is Addis Ababa. It's about 5 hours away. And up in the right is a picture of the hotel that I stayed at. And you can see hippos on the lake in the mornings. In the other corner is a city of the downtown life. So the community is it's mostly rural, but it also has a city structure. Here's a place that Vision set up for the children and the adults to come to. So here they're coming for language development, tutoring and education, socialization, and to reduce isolation. Now, what's interesting there is that deaf children are learning Ethiopian Sign Language. Here's an example. Now, here in America, with American Sign Language, when we say hello, hello. It's probably familiar. In Ethiopia, I'll put the mic down for just a second. Hello is, and the person says salam. Salam, which means hello. So Ethiopia has its own sign language. So Visions is providing free sign language training for parents. And also, through Audiology services, they're providing free hearing aids to hard of hearing children. Okay. As Brian mentioned, I was surprised and honored to have a Center of Audiology support named after me. That was just a thrill of a lifetime. With even a kind of a bigger thrill, and they built a booth. I could not believe it. So I'd have a nice, quiet place to do hearing tests, which has always been an issue. And they put the acoustic tiles. So this is just phenomenal. And I'm pretty sure it's the only one in the city. So last year, about 300 individuals signed up for audiology services, and they came from miles and miles away, and they would stay all day just to get a hearing test and possibly receive a hearing aid. So the demand for services is very high. So this is the team that was working there. There were two ENTs, and they're both pictured. The ENT at the top is cleaning out ears, doing wax management, which we really needed. And at the bottom, the ENT is doing a hearing test in the new booth that was set up. I was there as the audiologist. And because I neither know Amharic, spoken Ethiopian language, or sign language, I always worked with an interpreter to facilitate communication. We use typical audiometers like you see in the picture, but we also added iPad audiometry. Okay, let's take a closer look at that. So when you're working in a rural area, you want something mobile that's easy to travel in order to do the hearing test. So we found a software from Shoebox iPad that would produce tones that would present it through these headphones. So you can go out to different schools, different places, and test people's hearing. Now here's an example of an audiogram which shows a moderately severe to profound hearing loss that was first identified with this iPad audiometry out in the farming community. So over the 7 days, we saw 117 people, and 42 of them received one hearing aid. And if you look at the picture at the bottom, there's a young man with a blue shirt with his thumbs up. He had one of the most amazing experiences about first hearing with a hearing aid. He broke out in song. Just, just really changed his life. And we have the parents here and other children who received hearing aids. Can we switch back over to the PowerPoint? We'll keep on talking while we're looking for the next slide. Okay. What was interesting on the slide said was only one hearing aid per person. Now, as an audiologist, I strongly believe if you have a hearing loss in both ears, I recommend two hearing aids. That's all this benefit of binaural hearing. However, because we don't have a huge supply of hearing aids, we typically start with one. And over time, we may add that second hearing aid as we have more hearing aids to distribute. Okay? So, great. The question is, how do you power the hearing aids? We power them with disposable batteries like they're both 675, the blue ones, or the orange 13. So we try to have a hearing aid that's pretty flexible so you can adjust it from mild to profound hearing loss. And so we ask people to donate batteries to power those hearing aids. On a future slide, I'll jump a little bit. There are solar powered hearing aids. I jumped. So hold that thought. A little later, I'll talk about trying to evolve to using solar powered hearing aids. So we're not so dependent on non-recyclable hearing aid batteries. Okay. All right. So these are the type of hearing aids that are donated, as well as the batteries. So they look like your typical kind of older technology, but they're not rechargeable. Okay. And they're fit with something it's meant to fit like an ear mold, but they're not custom made. So one of our goals is trying to get more custom ear mold products for the fits. Each person would receive one hearing aid, a supply of hearing aid batteries, and also a battery tester, just to help them get started. West Tone, a big ear mold lab, donated pocket talkers, and they were wonderful. Because when you have one hearing aid, you're only hearing on that one side. With the pocket talker, we could provide hearing input to both ears. So we started using that with some of the younger kids. And this was also a technology that the staff at the center could easily fit. So they didn't have to have a laptop or hearing aid programming software in order to dispense or to give out the pocket talkers. So this ended up being a great tool. I had a short video I wanted to share with you about this person receiving their hearing aid. But we know that technically the video wasn't able to run, but the captions explain what was happening. This is somebody who had just received a hearing aid, and he was very happy about it. And he felt he was hearing more, and I laughed, and he talks about, oh, you know, I hear your laughter. I hear your laughter. And then we finished the video with how happy he is, and we end with a hug. So these are just some of the moments that I've learned to cherish by doing this kind of work. It's really impacting people's lives.
Wait, wait.
Okay, here we go. I don't know if anybody's tried Ethiopian coffee, but it's delicious. And during while we're working, at least twice a day, we'd have to stop and have some coffee. And that was just respecting cultural tradition, which was good for me because I would keep on. I've had people waiting. I just want to keep on working. So it was nice to slow down, re-energize, and then get back to work. We were also served a wonderful lunch. If anybody's eaten Ethiopian food before, the bread is called injera. It's like a sourdough bread. I see some heads nodding, right? And pasta is also very popular there. One of the reasons is that Italy tried to colonize Ethiopia in the 1940s. So they were there for at least 10 years. So they've had an impact on the Ethiopian culture. And sometimes you'll meet Ethiopians who are also fluent in Italian. Okay. Sometimes when they'll say bye, they'll say ciao. And that's just some of the influence from Italy. One of the goals of the work is sustainability. You know, we don't want to always have to go back to Ethiopia. We want Ethiopians to take up the work and keep it going. So they have been using that iPad audiometry to go out and test more children and adults to collect more information. And they're feeling pretty confident about having that tool. So what I've been doing on the US end, I'm providing some virtual trainings. So the audiometer, the hearing test equipment that I brought, they have the same equipment in Ethiopia. So what we do here at NTID, we set up my equipment with the camera on me. I'm in the bottom through Zoom. And also my hand is actually on the machine. So as I make adjustments, it appears on the screen that we both can see, and they can copy my adjustments. So we can actually do hearing tests together. So that's working out pretty well as far as providing some training. They're also practicing and they're sending me videos. So they watch the videos, I provide feedback, and then send that back to them. So when you're working, when you're volunteering and you're working in another country, I'm finding like Zoom, like we're using now, it's become a really great educational tool. For the first time, a second audiologist is going to join me, which I'm thrilled. Dr. Kalan is from the Learning Center in Framingham, Massachusetts. So she'll be coming along. So we'll be able to provide more training. We'll be able to have time to actually make some custom ear molds. We also want to do hearing aid programming, but in a different way. This time, the goal is to train the staff to do the hearing aid programming. So we want to leave the equipment there. Think about those who use hearing aids, your first fit. Sometimes that first fit was great, okay? But often you want to go back for fine tuning and adjustments. That's typical for a new hearing aid user. So in the past, I would go there, I fit the hearing aid, then have to wait a whole year to have an adjustment. So that impacts hearing aid use. So we're trying to increase hearing aid use by teaching them and giving them the tools to actually program the hearing aids in Ethiopia on site. So that's a goal for this upcoming trip. And that's really going to help with the sustainability, I think. Oh, the nonprofit Visions has started a school. It's K through second grade. It's a mainstream school. So they're starting to provide classes. And they asked me, what about FM? I'm like, wow. As we know, FM has many benefits, especially listening in a noisy environment and reducing the distance. So on this trip, we're trying to bring some FM equipment to help out with the school. And that can be used at home and in other locations as well. So far, volunteers are audiology volunteers, speech language pathologists, psychologists, interpreters. We've had engineers. So we'd like to increase the pool of people who want to come to Ethiopia just to help build the infrastructure for audiology, but also for educational things as well. We want to provide more training for the parents and the teachers. I mentioned earlier that the earliest hearing test for a child may be when they're age 7. So imagine if we could set up a universal newborn hearing screening program, have that early identification, and lessen the impact of hearing loss as that child grows up. So that's the ultimate goal. Sue had asked me about how the hearing aids are powered. Right now, they're powered with traditional batteries, but a long-term goal is to go solar. I mean, Ethiopia has a lot of sun. Wouldn't it be great if we could use the natural sun to charge those hearing aids? And so we're less dependable on typical batteries. So that is a long-time goal. There's actually a company called Solar Ear, which makes these rechargeable solar hearing aids. So we're trying to partner with them. We also want to provide speech and language services because these individuals are trying to talk. They're learning language, they want spoken language. And so we want to help them in that way by training the teachers so speech and language skills. And if we set up the universal newborn hearing screenings, we're going to want to partner with the local hospitals. We also want to continue partnering with the ENTs. Okay, when I think about HLAA, there are many opportunities to continue working together. First, thanks again for the travel grants. You're helping me to get there, and that's generally appreciated. That's really helping the work continue. We'd love to have you come, come to Ethiopia. Yeah, we'd love to have you come. If there's untapped talent, maybe, well, I go back. You are experts on hearing loss to people who are just recently identified. So imagine the wealth of information you'd have to share, particularly about your personal experiences and how to advocate. That would be very helpful. I'm bringing hearing aids that have telecoil, but I have nothing to connect them to. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we could set up some loops at different areas in the school, churches in Ethiopia? So that's a goal. And I see HLAA as an expert in that area. So I'd love to consult with you about that. Always looking for old behind the ear hearing aids. If you've got a rechargeable, you still held on to your old BTE, you don't think you're going to use it again, I may be able to take it to Africa with me. So I'm going to put that plug out there. And we're always looking for batteries to power those hearing aids to keep them working. We have a wish list through Amazon for educational supplies, notebooks, pens, as well as audiology supplies, cleaning tools, battery testers. And before I leave, if you're interested, let me know. I'm happy to share that wish list. We also have a new program where you could sponsor a child if you wanted to who's going through the Vision Academy. And that would be $360 a year. And I would love to come back. Yes. Okay. The question is more about the Vision Academy. It's a new school, and the school it's called the Deaf Vision Academy, but it's not only for the deaf. It's for the deaf, it's for the hard of hearing, and it's for the hearing. And so what they're doing, teachers are providing mathematics, English, and social science subjects for children K through 2, kindergarten to 2nd grade. Where is it? It's in Ethiopia. It's in Hawassa, Ethiopia. Thank you. It's in Hawassa, Ethiopia. It's the first school for these children in that area. And we're hoping to add more grades over time. And the volunteers, when we're going, they're going to be doing teacher training with the teachers who are in the academy. So they're setting up something separate, hoping that the education will eventually lead to employment. So it's looking at more of a long-term goal through the school. So that's a brand new project. I will see it for the first time when I go back this summer. As I mentioned before, we have an Amazon wish list. This is information about sponsoring a student. And I'm happy to stay and talk more about these programs at the end. Thank you for helping me to pay it forward. At this time, I welcome more questions or comments.
Do you know whether the solar batteries are available outside Ethiopia? Would they be available to people in the United States who wanted to do it that way?
Yeah, the contact person is Howard Weinstein. He is the president of Solar Ear. Now, the current hearing aids are actually built in Brazil, but you could buy them. You could buy them from Howard in the U.S. Okay. Yes. Sue? I'm sorry.
Hi, we just realized that we had a whole bunch of batteries that expired, but they expired in 2021 and 22, and we have 33 packs of batteries that we'd like to give you. Sometimes they don't work, but usually at least 2/3 of them do work.
Yes. Thank you so much. This will definitely be helpful.
Yes.
Great.
We got more? Yeah, just go ahead. Sure. We're gonna give you some more.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sue?
Feels like Christmas.
Margaret, did you have a question, Margaret?
Just briefly, Catherine, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard about you for years, and this is my first opportunity. So thank you, and thank you for that. How much is a ticket to Ethiopia?
Okay, good question. Tickets are between $1,700 and $2,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. No, I'm kind of teasing about that, but all this, our room is full of adults, and HLA has historically targeted a lot of older, well-seasoned individuals. I haven't heard you talk about work in that department, so to speak.
In Ethiopia?
Yes.
Okay. We see people coming in from all ages. So what's happening is some of the older children are bringing in their parents or their grandparents in for hearing aids. So there's nobody who's turned away, but part of it is getting the word out that we're here. If we're here, they come in. And some of those individuals have preferred the pocket talker instead of a personal hearing aid. They felt that was just easier to use. So imagine if somebody had never seen a hearing aid before. Here's this little thing. How am I going to use it? How am I going to get it in? Maybe their child has to do that for them. And that pocket talker, headset, mic on, and I'm ready to go. So sometimes it depends on the individual, their dexterity, and it's very much in the culture that the child takes care of the parent. And so when I was teaching somebody, they would say, oh, he'll take care of it. But I'm so used to, advocating for yourself, but you can do this. I don't need to. And somebody else will do this for me as far as help me take care of my hearing aid. Great question. Thank you.
You were talking about the Vision Academy, and that is the word deaf Vision Academy. But you said they're also serving people who are hard of hearing. What are they doing? Do they actually recognize the difference between children who are hard of hearing and those who are deaf? And what are they doing, if they do, what are they doing for people and children who are hard of hearing?
Okay. So for the children that are hard of hearing, they're primarily recommending them for the hearing aids. For the children that are deaf, they're recommending them to learn the Ethiopian Sign Language. So they focus more on the spoken language aspect with the children that are hard of hearing. And so in the Visions Academy, it'll be a teacher of the deaf paired with a hearing teacher. So that hard of hearing child is getting access to spoken language as much as they can. They're learning reading, they're learning writing, they're trying to incorporate some phonics work. So it's interesting. They don't separate themselves as much. They're like, we're all in this together. And they're just tailoring it to each individual child's needs. But as a community, we all have a hearing loss. So it's not so much as you're deaf, you're hard of hearing. We're all Ethiopian, and we all have a hearing loss. So what do I need as an individual? And that's what we're trying to match or accommodate. Yeah. Good question. Yes.
Hey, Catherine,
I'm sorry.
thanks for coming. You're a real pioneer.
Thank you.
Two questions. They're address questions. On the Amazon wish list, what would you look for if you went into Amazon? And the other one is, do you have a website that we can look for this information on?
I do. If you Google Visions Global Ethiopia, that'll pull up the website. Okay. And I can also, I'm happy to give out my email address. I'm at ccca@rit.edu.
Captain, what happens when you're not there?
That's a great question. What happens when I'm not there? Well, we saw some of the hearing testing is still going on with that iPad audiometry. So they're still going out and they're still testing hearing. If they have a hearing aid and let's say they're getting some feedback, they may have another little plastic tube that they can replace a little bigger size, so they can do a little bit of that. They can clean hearing aids, so do a little minor troubleshooting. But a lot of the time when I'm not there, more questions come up. So they're asking me or contacting me via email, what do we do in these situations? So I'm still learning what can be sustainable and how much I need to intervene. And every time I go, they're picking up more and more skills. So the need for me becomes less and less. And that's the ultimate goal.
The cause of hearing loss in Ethiopia, is it typical of what we see in the rest of the world, or is it something unique?
That's a great question. We tend to see more conductive hearing losses. So there's you have more ear infections, and they're untreated. Because they're untreated, they become more permanent. There's not a lot of options for middle ear surgeries. We see quite a few of unknowns. some genetic, but they're not always sure how far back it goes. I had an audiology assistant before. He was deafened by meningitis. So some of the things we see here, but I'm seeing much more of the conductive component. And some doctors even said not everybody wants an ear surgery. You know, I don't want that surgery. It's not a priority. You know, my let's see, broke my leg or something like that, I would do that. But my ear, it's not a priority. So this individual will be more interested in some kind of hearing aid rather than having a surgery.
I have a question. You mentioned you invited HLAA to come if they wanted to. How long would that be? And I don't know if there's a special language. Do they speak English or do they not?
That's a good question. The staff at the center I work with speak some English, but I'm primarily working with interpreters. So that's helpful. Typically, we're there for 10 days.
Just quickly, are they going without because of finance or because the equipment is simply not there? Does the government support them in any way, possibly financially?
It's a great question. There's very limited government support. I mean, in the capital, there's an Eastern African Hearing Aid Society. So there's one person who does sell hearing aids, and they're so expensive, people can't afford them. So typically when you see an Ethiopian with a hearing aid, they've gotten it from the States. Somebody, either they paid a lot of money and it was shipped to them. One thing that was interesting, Med-El has done a few cochlear implant surgeries in Ethiopia. So there are a few. So the same place who does the hearing aids also did the cochlear implant mapping in the capital. And on the last trip, they knew we were there and they came and they needed a new Med-El rechargeable battery. I said, I don't have that. I didn't bring that with me. But I thought about who gets lost to follow up. So what are they going to do if they can't get that battery replaced? So this is all part of that infrastructure, having those resources available. So like intervening and then leaving, and then you're stuck. And that's something that I'm trying to work to change.
Catherine, aren't there hearing aid companies that are able to subsidize or provide hearing aids or provide an audiologist in addition to yourself?
That's a
Like Starkey was one.
Starkey has gone to Ethiopia. Starkey's gone to Ethiopia and they fit a whole bunch of people with hearing aids. And then they left. So again, people are being lost to the follow-up. So that's great. But if you're not going back routinely, again, imagine being stuck with that first fit, and then I can't make any changes. Resound has donated. They donate like 20 hearing aids a year. So I've gotten that grant and that's been great. And I think Oticon Foundation, the new audiologist, she's asking them for hearing aids. So there is some work. And there's a few audiology groups who go to different countries and provide audiology services, but it seems to be different with a nonprofit. So sometimes it depends on who you're going with.
Say you were to have a whole bunch, say 1,000 hearing aid batteries. Where would they, because I know heat destroys the batteries. So where could they be kept? What kind of a program could you have where the batteries would be safe until they were needed?
That's a great question, because we left some batteries there last time. And so far, they're in a cabinet, and the cabinet itself, it's not in the heat. So the cabinet's in a cool place. It's a dark place. So I think that's helping them. But when I go back, I will make another check to see how well they're still working. The rice in the bag, there's different ways we can keep batteries kind of dry. That's a good question. I'll have to research that more, Sue. Thank you for that.
And what do they do with the used batteries?
I mean, there is ecologically not really cool, you know?
I have no idea. I think probably in the trash because there's no recycling program, and that's why we want to try to reduce that dependency on these non-environmental friendly batteries over time. So that would be the goal. But that's that's the best thing we have to offer at this time, and people are able to hear.
Are you, I know we gave you a bunch of batteries. Do you have a source of getting batteries relatively inexpensive?
That was a good question. I used to Varta is a hearing aid battery source, and they used to give me batteries, and this year they're unable to do so. So I guess the pricing on batteries, they said something with the zinc has changed over time. So yeah,
Yeah,
they're not as available as they were in the past, unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, we get batteries at cost and sell them back at cost to our members. So hopefully you're getting them at least that cheap, if not cheaper.
Okay.
And if not, maybe check with us. We'd be happy to sell you batteries.
Okay.
We'd be honored to donate, which
Thank you.
we've done. But we can maybe do that with the other expired batteries that we do not sell in time, and then get those to you.
Thank you.
So,
We'll work on that.
yeah. Janet?
You mentioned previously about accepting used hearing aids. What would be the mechanism to do that? Who would receive them? How would that be done?
The batteries would, the hearing aids would come to me, and then I would notify the nonprofit, and then we would send you a letter for a tax receipt if you wanted to claim that. Brian.
What about batteries from Lions Club? You know, we collect those with eyeglasses. I did it for 4 years, and then I would send them to John McNamara, in Rochester, and he would refurbish it. And I think he sent them along. But do you use Lion Club Foundation for that?
I have not. That sounds like that would be a good resource. Thank you. I have not.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I'd like to,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, we got some questions online?
Okay, great.
Okay, we'll give you time. And who we got? It looks like Fred. Go ahead, Fred. Got to unmute yourself first. Yes. Don't keep doing it, otherwise Fred, can you unmute yourself? All right, maybe while you're working on that, we'll let Catherine make your comment, and then when you're able to, just speak up.
I want to acknowledge that Ontario Hearing Associates, John McNamara and Andrea Segman, they have made donations. I'm very appreciative of that, as well as the Heart Hearing Centers. So in some ways, the community, other audiologists have contributed to the work in Ethiopia, and I'm very appreciative of that.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Brett, are you able to unmute yourself yet? Is there anybody else, any comments in the chat for questions, Charlie? No? Okay. We got about, trying to look, got about 11 minutes left. Fred. I know you have a question, but you gotta be able to unmute yourself first. We can't see you. Alright. Alright. Okay, can you unmute yourself? Lauren, can you ask him to unmute? Yeah. Don't keep clicking it. Just hit it once. Should appear right on your screen to unmute, Fred. Okay. Doesn't look like you're able to.
There we go.
There you are. Go ahead. Go ahead and say something, Fred.
Yes, I don't know if you heard my comments there, Marcia, but you helped me out many years ago. I visited you at the school along with Bert Foos. You took our pictures with your cameras, and you've been so much help. Mr. Bert Foos, who has since passed away, was in need of a part for an older implant, and you were able to help us out. And you've always been so helpful for me, especially now that I'm where I'm located here in Batavia. And believe me, my cochlear implant and all the accessories that I have been able to have because of your help, I'm able to hear very, very well and visit you this way. Thank you for all the help you do.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you for reminding me. And I remember, I think your friend needed a 3G cochlear implant processor, which was back from the early 90s. In NTID, we happened to have it. And so we just donated it. So I remember it was a wonderful appointment. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay. Any other questions before we?
Okay, I leave on July 28th.
And you'll be gone for 10 days.
Yeah, I'll be back. Come back on August 10th.
Just in time for the picnic.
I was thinking about my jet lag, so I'm a maybe for the picnic.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming and doing that wonderful presentation for us, and hopefully we'll see you next year.
Yeah, this has been lovely. Thank you for having me so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you fill out those evaluation forms before you leave. Thank you.